Jeffrey Epstein was a Wall Street financier who was worth millions and had connections and friendships with some of the world's most powerful and famous people. Unfortunately, he used his wealth and connections to allow him to operate as an almost untouchable sex trafficker and pedophile for more than 2 decades. In this week's episode, I'm going to break down and quickly summarize the Netflix special that covers his exploits and crimes over this multi-decade period. And I'm going to address some of the biggest questions that remain after the show ended, like issues around his death, accomplices, and how he blackmailed people. So get ready, because this is one of the most over-the-top human trafficking cases I have ever heard of. The Netflix miniseries is divided into 4 episodes, so first I will briefly touch on each episode to catch anyone who hasn't seen the series up to speed on what Epstein did and how he did it. And in the second part of this video is where I will address the issues that were not resolved within the show. In episode 1, we're introduced to one of Epstein's victims, a recent art school graduate who is lured by the promise of opportunity and work in Europe. She finds herself being woken in the middle of the night for a bizarre request to rub Epstein's feet. Shortly after rubbing his feet, she finds herself being groped by Epstein and his longtime girlfriend, Ghislaine Maxwell. We learn that this was just the first step of bringing this girl into Epstein's pyramid of victimization. Eventually, this girl would be coerced by Jeffrey's money, power, and intimidation. And as the episode continues, we follow Epstein as he keeps victimizing girls in a similar fashion down in Palm Beach, Florida. At this point, he's offering $200 to girls who are vulnerable financially, emotionally, and psychologically in exchange for a back rub. Most of these girls are from high schools in the surrounding area. One of the girls was so manipulated by Jeffrey that she convinced at least 24 other girls to give him one of his special massages. In episode 2, we learn that after a 7-month investigation, Palm Beach police secured a search warrant for Epstein's home, only to discover he had moved computer hard drives before the search was conducted. It appeared as if he was tipped off in advance of the search. While it is reported that he made his friends through financing, it is likely he made at least 1 or 2 influential friends at Mar-a-Lago, the prestigious club owned by President Trump. At this club, he met Virginia Roberts Guffey, who was only 17 years old at the time. Epstein had his girlfriend, Ghislaine Maxwell, invite the girl to give him a massage for $200. Upon accepting the invitation, she finds herself being pressured to sleep with Epstein and spending time riding bikes and hanging out and going on all sorts of crazy trips with both Ghislaine and Jeffrey. This process is where she's being groomed and taken into thinking that Jeffrey actually cares about her. Months into her ordeal, she ends up being trafficked out to others, including Prince Andrew. The episode continues on by showing how Epstein lied to get multiple jobs and the remorse that his boss at Bears and Stearns had about hiring him. His manipulation skills would really be put to the test as he dealt with Palm Beach prosecutors, possibly charging him with more than 40 counts of rape and sex trafficking. However, in the end, he was able to plea his way into just a single count of solicitation of a prostitute. In episode 3, the shocking plea bargain that allowed Epstein to escape justice is revealed. He was able to convert a possible lifetime amount of prison time for an 18-month sentence, which he only ended up serving 13 months of. Almost as shocking, he was able to have work release, so as a pedophile sex offender, he was able to leave the jail for up to 12 hours a day. As if all of this was not bad enough, he violated the terms of the work release and his subsequent probation period by leaving the state and going to Miami, New York, and he even found time to go off to his own private island in the Virgin Islands. A private investigator who was following Epstein, though, claims that there were at least 66 days when Epstein violated his agreement, but the probation officer refused to act because Epstein was a celebrity. In the 4th and final episode, Virginia Roberts Guffey breaks free from Epstein's control and vows to take him down for good. She wanted justice for being forced to sleep with Prince Andrew and more than 30 other prominent men throughout the world, according to her claim. As Virginia goes to civil court, a federal judge found a conspiracy existed between the federal government and Epstein's victims being misled. This news prompts Alexander Ocasio to resign from his position as labor secretary, as he was in charge of that case years before. By 2019, Epstein is charged with conspiracy to commit sex trafficking and sex trafficking. And despite offering more than $500 million for bail, Epstein is held in jail while he awaits his trial. With all of his former friends abandoning him, he begins to panic. And rather than living out his life in a cell, he decides that he's going to commit suicide by choking himself with his bedsheet. The episode comes to a close as we learn that before committing suicide, Epstein moved all of his money to the Virgin Islands to ensure that none of his victims could ever touch or receive any of the money, even after his death. Jeffrey Epstein's case was shocking, horrifying, unique, and sad. But even after watching the Netflix special, there are still so many more questions that can be answered. Going on Reddit or searching through Google, you can find dozens of questions surrounding this case. I'm going to address some of the questions I saw pop up the most. But if you have more questions you want to ask, please ask in the comment section of this video, and I will attempt to address it as best as possible. Having researched human trafficking for more than a decade, presenting on human trafficking at different conferences, and teaching criminal justice as a college professor, I feel confident in being able to address a range of questions about this case. But if I do not know the answer, I will do my best to find the answer for you. So let's jump in. I think the biggest question that exists for many, even after watching the Netflix special, is did he really kill himself? And it sounds plausible that being able to out so many high profile people, he could have been murdered and then had the scene staged to look like a suicide. In fact, Mark Epstein, Jeffrey's brother, believed something was off and privately paid a medical examiner to conduct an autopsy. The autopsy revealed broken bones by Jeffrey's jaw that did not align with the narrative of death by strangulation. Additionally, the guards that were watching Jeffrey's cell fell asleep and the cameras were not recording. It has been reported that more than half of the guards working during the midnight shift when Epstein committed suicide were working overtime from the 4 p.m. to midnight shift. So it is conceivable that they were tired and fell asleep. Also, the federal prison system is definitely overcrowded and understaffed. But this seems a little too convenient to me. Bill Mercy, Epstein's former suicide watch counselor, stated that there would have been no way that someone could have gotten into the cell to kill Epstein because too many people would have had to have been paid off to get that done. Additionally, there is the issue of Epstein adjusting his will just a couple days before killing himself, as I previously mentioned in this video. This signals that perhaps he knew he was going to kill himself and wanted to set his affairs in straight in order first. There is still plenty of debate going on about this, and the Attorney General William Barr said in a letter to Republican Senator Ben Sasse about Epstein committing suicide that heads must roll. Barr, like many others, does not accept the serious irregularities at the jail, and intent on finding the truth, he told Epstein co-conspirators they should not rest easy. So, while this does not give us a definitive answer, it seems that the head of the Justice Department is pretty convinced that something besides suicide took place here. It will be interesting to see what the Attorney General finds. I will be keeping my eye on this and update any important developments on the Human Trafficking Hater Facebook page. Jeffrey Epstein had a multitude of people helping him inflict suffering on hundreds of girls around the world. Throughout the Netflix special, it is apparent that three people stand out: Ghislaine Maxwell, Jeffrey's madam/pimp and girlfriend, Alan Dershowitz, his attorney, and Prince Andrew, his friend. So let's take a look at what happened to them since Epstein's death. Ghislaine Maxwell helped Epstein coerce, intimidate, and set up interactions between prominent men and underage girls all over the world. She was constantly with Epstein, and many of the girls who accused Epstein claimed that Ghislaine was heavily involved in their abuse as well. Rather than facing justice, Ghislaine has decided to hide out. She has allegedly been seen at an In-N-Out Burger restaurant in Los Angeles, living in a castle in France, living in a mansion in Manchester, and living in a high-priced chateau in France. Wherever she is, she's fighting to protect the identities of Epstein's rich friends who were involved in the sex trafficking ring. Her attorneys are currently fighting to keep more than 400 pages of transcripts from her deposition in 2015 sealed. The transcript includes the identities of people who provided information in the case under an expectation of confidentiality, and the names of individuals accused of enabling Epstein or participating in the abuse. There are thousands more pages to review, and the process may take months before anything could potentially be released. Alan Dershowitz was Epstein's lawyer and also appeared to be his friend, as Epstein would review books for Dershowitz that he wrote. Since Epstein's death, though, Alan has been fighting to get access to the files that Ghislaine Maxwell has been trying to keep sealed. In this odd twist of fate, the two who may have worked together in the past are now directly pitted against one another. Dershowitz wants access to the files so he can clear his name by showing his name was not included in a list of men who victimized Virginia Roberts Giuffre. While he has sued Giuffre for defamation of character for accusing him of sexually assaulting her multiple times over the years when she was underage, he is not currently being charged for any crime involving the sex trafficking pyramid that Giuffre set up. Since being accused of having sex with underage girls in Giuffre's sex trafficking ring, Prince Andrew has stepped down as a senior royal, but still has yet to be tried in court. He participated in an interview on the BBC where he claimed that he had no memory from the night he allegedly had sex with an underage girl. He did this in spite of a picture existing showing he had met that girl. There has been back and forth between the U.S. justice officials stating publicly that they want to speak with the prince as part of an investigation, but are unable to get a hold of him. At the same time, UK officials say that the prince was always willing to participate in the investigation, but claim they never heard from the US. Shanti Davies was a flight attendant on Epstein's plane and claims that she was abused by him and knew that he had a lot of blackmail videos. Anne Maria Farmer, who was victimized by Jeffrey, described a video room she saw in a $75 million mansion in New York City. From this room, there was a video screen of every room in the house, and everything was being recorded. Additionally, Bradley J. Edwards, who was an attorney who spent more than 10 years on Epstein's case, confidently claimed that Epstein likely had the women's emails a password so that he could track them beyond the home. He also reported that when Epstein was caught in 2008, there were likely many videos that he destroyed. That means whatever blackmail videos that may exist will likely only reach as far back as 2010. So while this may not be the most extravagant answer, it is likely the way that Epstein was able to have so many prominent people in his life and why he was able to evade police for so long. Some contend that possible blackmail may be the reason why Jeffrey Berman, a United States attorney for the Southern District of New York from 2018 to 2020, was just fired by Attorney General Barr for not dropping the Prince Andrew probe. From 1990 to 2019, Jeffrey Epstein victimized hundreds of girls while participating and possibly heading an international sex trafficking ring that may have involved as prominent figures as a former Israeli prime minister, a prince, celebrities, and scientists. Others involved in this case are distancing themselves from the memory of Epstein or actively fighting to clear their names. His vault of trophies that was comprised of many videos may still bring us more shocking news. But for now, it seems the conspiracies around his death and how he attempted to control those around him by blackmailing them and the many other conspiracies that may have emerged from this case are issues that will slowly be figured out over time as we continue to dig into this case more and more. Let me know your thoughts on Jeffrey Epstein. Do you think he died of suicide or was it something else? Is there a conspiracy or something else that I did not mention that you think is important? Please feel free to share any of your thoughts or questions in the comment section below. Thank you for listening to Human Trafficking Hater. If you're interested in getting more content about human trafficking, how to address it, and how it impacts millions around the world, please subscribe and join us as we continue to hate human trafficking and raise awareness.